The moment you stop reacting is the moment you begin to rise. Not everything deserves your energy. Not every noise deserves your voice. You are not here to chase chaos. You are here to build peace. So today, I want to talk to you about power, not the kind that shouts, the kind that whispers in silence. React to nothing. Control everything. We live in a world of noise, a world where everyone has an opinion, a reaction, a judgment, and we get pulled in. Someone says something rude and we snap. Someone doubts us and we burn with rage. Someone ignores us and we feel invisible. But hear me when I say this. Every time you react, you give your power away. You give away your peace, your grace, your growth. The world is not supposed to control your spirit. You are. Use gentle repetition to deepen the idea. You are not a puppet of opinions. You are not the echo of anger. You are the still center of your storm. When I was younger, I thought silence was weakness, that speaking back, shouting louder, fighting harder was strength. But life taught me otherwise. I learned that silence is power, that choosing not to react, that is divine discipline, because anyone can scream, anyone can throw back what's thrown at them, but very few can receive chaos and still respond with calm. Very few can be insulted and still stay in grace. Very few can walk through fire and not let the flames burn their purpose. Let me tell you a story about a woman I once met. She was successful outside, but inside she was tired of reacting, tired of fighting everyone and everything, tired of defending her worth. One day she told me, "Oprah, I'm exhausted from defending myself." And I said to her, "What if you stopped defending and just started being?" That question changed her life. She started letting go. She stopped replying to every rumor, stopped proving herself, stopped explaining herself to people who were never listening. And what happened? She became more powerful than ever, because she was no longer playing their game. She was writing her own rules, and so can you. So ask yourself today, what am I reacting to that I don't need to? Who have I given my peace to, without them even asking, is it worth it, or is it time to bring that power home? React to nothing, control everything. Let that be your daily prayer. Asterisk, there's a voice out there, constantly shouting at you, telling you who to be, what to wear, who to love, what you're worth. And if you listen long enough, you'll forget the sound of your own soul. Asterisk, the outside world is a storm, but inside you there is a place no storm can touch. That's what today is about, finding that place, that silence, that power within you. We live in a time where everything demands a reaction. You scroll and someone is angry. You post and someone criticizes. You speak and someone misunderstands. And every time we respond to that noise, we shrink a little. We forget that we have a choice. You do not have to answer every knock on your door. Not every voice deserves your ears. Not every fight needs your sword. In fact, the most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all. That's not weakness. That's mastery. Let me tell you something that changed my life. When the world is loud, become quieter inside. There is a sanctuary within you, a quiet, sacred space where truth lives. I remember, during some of the hardest moments of my life, I didn't find answers in the noise. I found them in solitude, in early morning stillness, in long walks with no phone, in prayer, in tears that had no words. That silence, it didn't make me smaller, it made me stronger. Because when you can sit with your pain without running, when you can hold your anger without releasing it on others, when you can feel judged and still not defend yourself, that's when you start to own your life, not the world's noise, but your own rhythm. I want to tell you about a man I met in Chicago. He was a teacher, soft-spoken, deeply wise. One day, a student insulted him during class, called him weak, mocked him in front of everyone. The teacher smiled and said nothing. After class, I asked him, "Why didn't you respond?" he said. "Because that insult was a gift I never accepted. That man taught me something that day, that you can still be calm, still be kind, still be powerful, without raising your voice. His silence wasn't surrender, it was sovereignty." You do not need to react to every text message, every family comment, every online post, every whisper behind your back. Most of it is not about you, it's a projection, a reflection of someone else's pain. And here's the truth: when you engage with that pain, you make it your own. But when you breathe, when you pause, when you refuse to be baited into drama, you rise, you become more than the moment, you become peace itself. Close your eyes if you can, take a deep breath, and now ask yourself, what am I giving too much of myself to? What conversations leave me empty? What opinions am I holding onto that don't serve me? What would it feel like to just let go? You are not here to react. You are here to create. You are not here to chase noise. You are here to become silence. React to nothing. Control everything, because everything you seek is already inside you. There is one thing in this life that will always try to run ahead of your peace: your emotions. Emotions are powerful, they're beautiful, but if you don't learn to guide them, they will guide you right into places you never wanted to be. You see, emotional control, that's not about suppression, it's about transformation. When someone offends you, you don't lash out. You pause, you breathe, you choose, because your power is not in your reaction, it's in your response. Have you ever said something in anger and wished you could take it back? Have you ever allowed a bad moment to ruin a beautiful day? That's the cost of untrained emotion, and let me tell you, I've been there. I've been that woman crying in the car because I let someone else's energy invade mine. But the truth I learned over time was this: you don't have to own every feeling that visits you. Some are just passing through, and you get to choose which ones stay. There is a sacred moment right between trigger and response, and that moment, that breath, is your throne. It's where queens rise, where kings are made, where your best self whispers, "We don't need to go there." I call it the pause of grace, because in that pause you get to choose your identity. Are you the wounded child or the wise adult? Are you revenge or are you love? That pause can change your whole life. Let me tell you a story about a young woman I mentored. She was brilliant, but fiery, quick to react. Every small criticism felt like an attack. Every disagreement felt like betrayal, and it was eating her up inside. One day I asked her to try something new. When the storm comes, don't shout, don't argue, don't cry, just write it down and wait 1 hour. She thought I was crazy, but she tried it, and what happened? Her pain became clarity, her anger became truth, her wounds became wisdom, and most of the time, she no longer even needed to respond. That's what emotional control does. It gives you the time to respond, not from your wounds, but from your wisdom. Your emotions are energy, but here's the miracle: you can transmute that energy. Anger can become purpose, sadness can become depth, jealousy can become self-awareness. The energy is yours, the direction is your decision, and when you learn to sit with it without acting from it, you rise higher than you ever imagined. So the next time you feel it, the fire rising in your chest, the tears building in your eyes, don't run from it, don't fight it. Just pause, breathe, and ask yourself, what would love do right now? Because when you stop reacting emotionally, you become emotionally intelligent. And when you become emotionally intelligent, you stop being a victim of life, you become its master. React to nothing, control everything, and in that control, find your peace. There is a space in this world where very few people live. It's not loud, it's not crowded, it's a place of silence, stillness, and oh, the power that lives there. The world may tell you, speak louder, prove yourself, hustle harder, but I'm here to tell you, sometimes your silence is your strength, your stillness is your shield. From the moment we are born, we're taught to act, do, move, strive, and in that noise, we lose our center. We think stillness is laziness. We think silence is weakness. But I'll tell you this, some of the most powerful moments of my life happened in absolute stillness, alone, on a porch, in the morning fog, in the middle of heartbreak, lying on the floor, in meditation, when everything inside me screamed, but I sat still anyway. Those are the moments that built me. Years ago, I met a woman in South Africa. She had lost her husband and her son. When I asked how she healed, she didn't mention therapy or medication. She said, I sat in the garden every morning and I said nothing for 1 full year. I looked at her shocked and she smiled at me with the softest eyes and said, I didn't need to say anything because God was already speaking. I just needed to be quiet enough to hear. That story stayed with me forever, because stillness is how we hear our soul. Silence is how we meet the divine. In this world, everybody wants to win with words, with arguments, with debates. But do you know what cuts deeper than words? The absence of them. When someone expects rage but you give stillness. When the world pulls and you stay centered. That's power, that's emotional gravity. It's not about shutting down, it's about rising above, because true power never needs to shout. So how do you live this way, in a world that never stops moving? You create moments, not hours, not days, just moments. 5 minutes in the morning without your phone, sitting on your bed and breathing before sleep, watching the sky in silence without needing answers. In those small moments, you reconnect with the truth that you are not your schedule, not your followers, not your to-do list. You are a soul, and your soul thrives in stillness. You don't need to perform, you don't need to prove, you don't need to panic. You just need to pause. In stillness you hear what matters, in silence you feel what's real. So today I ask you, will you stop chasing the noise and come home to the quiet power inside you, because that power, that presence, that's where everything begins. React to nothing. Control everything through silence, through stillness, through self. Energy, it's the currency of your life, and let me tell you, you are spending it somewhere, every single moment. The question is, are you investing it in what matters, or leaking it into what doesn't? Because there's one truth you've got to understand if you want to live free. Not everyone and everything deserves your energy, and if you don't take control of it, this world will drain you piece by piece, day by day, until there's nothing left but exhaustion and resentment. We live in a world of endless notifications, endless expectations. Everybody wants something, and many of us, especially women, especially givers, we try to give it all. We say yes when we mean no. We show up even when we're empty, and the truth is, you can't keep pouring from a dry cup. Being everything to everyone is the fastest way to lose yourself, and I want to remind you of something today. You are not selfish for choosing yourself. You are not rude for setting a boundary. You are not cold for protecting your peace. That is not weakness. That is wisdom. Let me give you something practical here. I want you to do an energy audit. Ask yourself, who lifts me and who drains me? What activities light me up and what depletes me? What spaces nourish me and which ones suffocate me? And then I want you to remember this sacred rule. If it costs your peace, it's too expensive, period. The world teaches us to chase money, fame, validation. But if you don't protect your energy, none of that will feel like enough, because you'll be exhausted, bitter, burnt out. I remember speaking to a woman in Chicago after one of my shows. She said, "Oprah, I don't even know who I am anymore. I wake up and I already feel tired. I say yes to everyone. I don't remember the last time I had a full day to myself." I looked her in the eyes and said, What would happen if you just said, "No," she cried, not because it hurt, but because the idea of choosing herself was so foreign it felt like rebellion. A year later, she emailed me. She had learned to say no. She had started painting again. She left a toxic relationship. And you know what she said? "I finally remembered who I was before the world taught me to be everything else." That's the power of reclaiming your energy. You don't need a big transformation to own your energy. You need small, sacred habits. Wake up before the world wakes up just for you. Say no without guilt. Surround yourself with people who celebrate your boundaries. Give only from your overflow, not from your core. Rest without apologizing. Because protecting your energy is not a luxury, it is a survival skill, especially for those who carry light. Because the brighter you shine, the more the darkness will try to dim you. Don't let it. You are not here to be drained. You are not here to be used up. You are here to shine, but that shine, it needs fuel, so fuel it, protect it, respect it, because when you own your energy, you own your decisions, you own your boundaries, you own your peace, you own your life, and that is freedom. React to nothing, control everything, because everything begins with the energy you choose to carry. Let me tell you something that will change your life. You don't owe anyone your reaction, not your ex, not your critics, not your family who doesn't understand you, and certainly not the strangers on the internet. Your energy is not a public playground. You are not here to prove your worth. You are not here to explain your path. You are here for one thing, to create your future, and when you react to everything, you delay that future. You feed the noise instead of the dream, and baby, you've got a dream to build. Every time you react to drama, every time you respond to hate, every time you defend yourself to people who never cared about understanding you, you step off your path. You go from creating to coping, and I'll tell you this truth, coping keeps you stuck. Creating moves you forward. The more you defend your past, the longer it owns you. And listen, you weren't born to be owned. You were born to build peace, build joy, build something that outlives the pain. I once met a woman at a leadership conference. She had built a company from nothing, raised millions, employed hundreds, and she said to me, "Oprah, I still find myself wanting to explain why I missed a meeting, why I didn't answer that email, why I didn't go to dinner. I still feel like I owe people reasons just to exist." And I looked her in the eye and said, "You built an empire. You don't owe anybody your peace." And she started crying because she'd never heard it like that. She'd built everything, but had forgotten she didn't need to apologize for living life on her terms. You want to know the highest form of self-respect? Silence in the face of nonsense. That is not weakness. That is mastery. When they try to pull you into gossip, don't respond. When they try to poke your wounds, don't flinch. When they expect a fight, give them your absence. That's how kings and queens move. That's how warriors walk with stillness in the storm. Because the moment you stop reacting, you start choosing your time, your peace, your power. Let me speak to your heart for a second. You are allowed to evolve in silence. You are allowed to heal without posting about it. You are allowed to cut off the toxic without sending a final message. You are allowed to grow beyond your past without announcing your progress. You don't owe the world a version of you that makes them comfortable, because real healing is personal. It's sacred. It's quiet. And sometimes the loudest transformation happens in the softest moments when you choose not to react, when you just breathe and keep going. You don't owe anyone your fire. You don't owe them your voice, your presence, or your energy. You owe yourself a future, one where you're not burned out from explaining, one where your power isn't diluted by drama. You don't have to react, because every time you choose silence over chaos, you're building something that cannot be touched by noise, something eternal, your peace, your purpose, and that, my love, That is everything. React to nothing. Control everything, because your future deserves your focus, not your explanations. Let me tell you a secret. The strongest people I've met in this life, they don't yell, they don't explode, they don't chase validation, they don't act out of impulse, they respond with stillness, they lead with grace, because true power is calm, and that kind of calm, that's emotional discipline, and it is a superpower. Emotional discipline is the ability to pause, before you speak to breathe, before you react to observe, without attaching. It's self-mastery, not just when things are going well, but especially when they're not. When someone disrespects you, and you choose to protect your peace over your pride, that's emotional discipline. When everything feels uncertain, but you stay grounded in your faith, that's emotional discipline. It's not about being perfect. It's about being present in your body, in your breath, in your truth. Let's be honest, we don't live in a world that rewards emotional control. We live in a world that profits from your reaction. Social media wants you to scroll in outrage. TV wants you to take sides. People will test you, provoke you, try to pull you out of your center, because if they can steal your reaction, they can steal your attention. And if they can steal your attention, they can own your energy. That's why emotional discipline is rebellion. It is choosing inner strength over outer chaos. There was a story I once read, a young black man, falsely accused, facing years behind bars, and yet, every time he was provoked in court, he didn't react. He stayed calm, stoic, silent, and when he was finally proven innocent, a reporter asked him, "Why didn't you fight back harder? Why didn't you yell?" He said, "Because I knew my reaction wouldn't serve my future." That shook me, because that is a level of power the world rarely sees, the power of emotional discipline under fire. That man walked out not just free, but undefeated, because he didn't give them his spirit. So how do you build this strength? Start with breath. One deep breath before you respond can save your day. Journal your reactions. What triggers you? What centers you? Learn the pause before you speak. Wait before you reply. Reflect. Visualize your peace. Picture it like a shield protecting it at all costs. Make stillness a practice, not just in meditation, but in real life, because when you master your inner world, nothing in the outer world can shake you. You're not weak for walking away. You're not soft for choosing silence. You are strong because you choose to feel without falling apart. You choose to respond without revenge, and that, my friend, is divine maturity. It's the kind of power that no one can take from you. It's invisible. It's internal, and it's infinite. That's what emotional discipline gives you. Unshakable power. React to nothing. Control everything. That's not just a mantra. That's your new way of life. Every time you feel triggered, every time something inside you tightens, every time your heart races or your mind goes wild, that moment is not just pain. It is a teacher, a message wrapped in discomfort. And if you learn to listen, you will transform your life. Triggers come from deep within us, from wounds, memories, fears, and unmet needs. They are automatic reactions, but you have the power to make them intentional lessons. When someone says something harsh, or you feel rejected, or you relive an old pain, that's your inner child crying out. It's asking you to pause, to see, to heal. I once met a woman who was quick to anger. She would lash out at those she loved, hurt the very people trying to hold her. But one day, she decided to ask herself, what is this anger trying to tell me? She started journaling. She started meditating. She started listening to the quiet pain underneath the noise, and slowly her triggers became signals not for battle, but for healing. She learned to respond with love instead of reaction with rage, and her relationships, they transformed, because she transformed herself. Here's how you can start turning your triggers into teachings. Name the feeling. Anger, sadness, fear, just say it aloud. Ask why. What is underneath this reaction? What old story is this tied to? Breathe into the discomfort. Sit with it, don't run. Journal what you learn. Track your trigger and your growth. Seek help if needed. Healing is a journey, you don't have to walk it alone. These are not easy steps, but they are powerful, because growth lives on the other side of pain. Remember this truth: you cannot always control what happens to you, but you can control how you respond. Triggers will come, they always do, but you get to choose, react in pain or learn and grow. Choosing to learn means reclaiming your power. Choosing to grow means stepping into your freedom. So the next time you feel triggered, don't just react, don't just fight or run. Pause, breathe, listen, because that moment, that uncomfortable moment, is the beginning of your healing. React to nothing. Control everything. Let your triggers be your teachers and watch your life change. The most powerful thing you own is not your body, is not your job, is not your money. It is your mind, the way you think, the stories you tell yourself, the voice you listen to. These create your reality. And mastering your mind means mastering your life. Your mind is like a garden. If you plant weeds, negative thoughts, fears, doubts, they grow and choke your dreams. But if you nurture it with positive seeds, hope, gratitude, courage, you harvest strength, joy, peace. Every thought is a seed, every reaction is a choice. Master your mind and you master your destiny. When faced with stress, criticism, or fear, your mind goes into battle mode. The reactive mind wants to lash out, panic, or withdraw. The disciplined mind pauses, evaluates, and responds. That pause, that moment, is where your power lies, because it is the space between stimulus and response that defines who you are. Nelson Mandela spent 27 years in prison. During that time, his mind was his refuge. He did not allow bitterness or hatred to consume him. Instead, he cultivated forgiveness, hope, and vision. His mind was the battleground, and he won it. Because he mastered his reaction, he changed the course of history. What if you too can master your mind like that? Here are tools to train your mind into an ally, not an enemy. Meditation. Calm the mind, observe thoughts without judgment. Affirmations. Speak your truth to reshape your beliefs. Mindfulness. Live fully in the present, not the past or future. Gratitude practice. Shift your focus from lack to abundance. Cognitive reframing. Change how you interpret challenges. These practices build mental resilience, your shield against life's storms. Your mind is your most valuable asset. Protect it, feed it, master it, because when you control your mind, no outside force can control your life. React to nothing, control everything, and remember your greatest power starts within. How much of your energy is spent worrying about what others think? How often do you shrink, hide, or change just to fit in? The truth is, the opinions of others are beyond your control, and when you detach from their judgments, you reclaim your freedom. Detachment is not coldness, it's empowerment. From childhood, we are taught to seek approval from parents, teachers, friends, society. Approval becomes a currency, and judgment becomes a cage. But when you live by others' standards, you lose yourself. You dim your light to make others comfortable, and that's where true pain lies. I remember when I first learned to detach. People doubted me, criticized me, told me who I should be. It was painful. But the moment I stopped caring about fitting in, the moment I stopped chasing approval, was the moment I started living. I found my voice, my power, my peace. That's the freedom I want for you. Detachment is a practice, not a one-time event. Notice when you seek approval. Awareness is the first step. Ask yourself, whose opinion truly matters? Set boundaries. Protect your emotional space. Practice self-acceptance. Know your worth beyond external validation. Surround yourself with genuine support. Build a tribe who sees your real you. Detachment frees your energy for what truly matters: your purpose, your dreams, your happiness. Self-approval is the highest form of validation. It means you believe in yourself even when no one else does. It means you say, "I am enough," in the face of doubt. It means you live your truth unapologetically, and that power can move mountains. Imagine a life where you react to nothing external: no criticism, no praise, no judgment, only your own steady, strong voice. That is the life of true empowerment. Detach to empower, react to nothing, control everything. The freedom is yours to claim. The journey to mastery is yours. As we come to the close of this journey together, remember, mastery is not a destination. It is a daily practice. React to nothing. Control everything. When you refuse to be shaken by the storms around you, when you rise above triggers, opinions, and chaos, that is freedom. That is power. That is your birthright. So stand tall in your truth. Walk forward with courage, and know this: no matter what happens outside, your inner world remains yours to command. Thank you for listening, and thank you for choosing yourself. The world awaits your greatness. When someone doesn't value you anymore, try this and watch what happens. I want you to imagine this moment. It's late, the lights are off, the world outside is quiet, but inside you, there's a storm. You're staring at your phone, again, waiting for a message that never comes, replaying that conversation, those moments, trying to make sense of what went wrong. You gave them your time, your heart, your loyalty. And now they barely look at you, barely speak to you. It's like you went from being someone they couldn't live without to someone they barely notice, and you're asking yourself that one haunting question: how did I become invisible to someone I once meant everything to? I know that pain. I know what it's like to feel like you're no longer enough for someone you gave your everything to. Maybe it's a partner, maybe it's a friend, a parent, a colleague, whoever it is. It hurts, it cuts. It leaves you questioning your worth, and in that pain, we start doing something dangerous. We shrink, we try harder, we overcompensate, we give more of ourselves, thinking maybe, just maybe, they'll see us again. But what if I told you, the moment someone stops valuing you isn't your cue to beg for their love. It's your invitation to rediscover your own. Let me say that again. When someone doesn't value you anymore, that's not your defeat. It's not your ending, it's your awakening. And today, I want to take your hand and walk you through that awakening, because there's something you can try right now, right here, that will change everything. Not just how others treat you, but how you walk through this world, stronger, brighter, unapologetically whole. Try this and watch what happens. I promise you, your soul will thank you for it. Years ago, long before the stages, the spotlight, the interviews, I was a girl standing in front of a mirror, wondering why I felt so unseen. Yes, me, opera. People think once you're successful, you stop feeling invisible. That money, fame, or love will fill the hole left by someone who didn't see your worth. But let me tell you something. Nothing will fill that hole until you do, and I remember this moment so vividly. I was in a relationship with someone I loved deeply. I gave them everything, my heart, my time, my softness, my dreams, and somewhere along the line, I started noticing the way they stopped listening when I talked. The way they no longer asked how I was doing, the way they stopped looking at me the way they used to. I was still showing up, still giving, still believing, but they were drifting, distant, cold. And I kept trying to pull them back, planning special moments, writing long messages, asking questions I already knew the answers to. Is everything okay? But what I was really asking was, do I still matter to you? And every time I didn't get the answer I wanted, I died a little inside. But here's the lesson I learned. When you are constantly trying to prove your worth to someone, you've already forgotten your own. Let that sink in. You see, when people stop valuing you, it rarely happens overnight. It's not always loud. Sometimes it's quiet and slow. like the sound of a faucet dripping at midnight, barely noticeable until your heart is drowning in it. And what do? We start asking the wrong questions. What did I do wrong? Why am I not enough anymore? How can I fix this? But the right question is, why am I staying somewhere my soul is starving? Because here's the truth, love, you are not hard to love. You are not too much. You are not too emotional, too intense, or too needy. You are just too real for someone who's lost in their own disconnect. And that's not your burden to carry. When someone doesn't value you anymore, your first instinct might be to do more. But today, I want to show you a different way, a more powerful way, a path that leads you back home, to yourself. Because when you stop chasing people who can't see your light, you start attracting those who can't help but be drawn to it. So let's walk this road together. Let's take this pain and turn it into your greatest comeback. Let's rediscover your value not through their eyes, but through your own reflection. And I'm going to walk you through exactly how to do that. Because when someone doesn't value you anymore, you don't shrink. You don't chase, you rise, and baby, you rise so high they can't even reach you anymore. Just because they stopped clapping doesn't mean you stopped being extraordinary. You see, the human heart has a hunger to be seen, to be acknowledged, to feel in the deepest part of your soul that you matter. And when someone we love, someone we trusted, starts to pull away, when they go silent, when they stop texting first, when they stop noticing the little things, we start to panic. Did I say something wrong? Maybe I should reach out again. Maybe if I do more, they'll love me again. And that, right there, is the trap. That's where we confuse attention with value. Let me tell you something you might need to hear right now. Just because someone isn't showing up for you doesn't mean you're not worthy of being shown up for. Their silence is not your fault. Their distance is not a reflection of your beauty, your intelligence, your heart, your soul. That's their battle. That's their lens. That's their disconnection. Your value was never supposed to be measured by how much someone else claps when you walk into the room. No, you carry value simply by being. I want you to think about this. Does the sun stop shining because someone closed their blinds? Does the ocean become less magnificent because someone's afraid of deep water? You are like that sun, that ocean. Just because someone turned their back on your light doesn't mean your light went out, but we've been conditioned by society, by stories, sometimes even by our upbringing to believe that love, validation, and attention are the same thing. That if someone calls us every day, they love us. That if they like our photos, they care. That if they stop showing up, we must have failed. But listen closely, love, real value is quiet. Real worth is internal. It's not about who sees you. It's about how you see yourself when no one's watching. Let me share a story. Years ago, I met a woman after one of my shows. She waited 3 hours just to speak to me. And when she finally did, she was shaking. She said, "Opera, I don't know who I am anymore. I gave 10 years of my life to a man who stopped seeing me, and when he left, I felt like I disappeared." And I held her hands, looked into her eyes, and said, "You were never invisible. You were just looking through someone else's eyes to find your reflection. That's what so many of us do. We look to someone else's attention, their praise, their consistency, to remind us of our value. But that's like asking a mirror to reflect your soul. It just can't do it. So today, I want you to take your power back. I want you to repeat this until it's not just words, until it's your truth. I am valuable even when unseen. I am worthy even when unchosen. I am enough even when ignored. Say it again, out loud, right now. You see, The pain of not being valued by someone you care about is real. It's not something to brush off or suppress. Feel it, acknowledge it, but don't let it redefine you. Don't let their blind spots rob you of your brilliance. Let me tell you something else. Sometimes people can't value you because they haven't even learned how to value themselves. And what do? We try to fix them, heal them, show them love. But you cannot pour love into someone else's cup if yours is bone dry. And your cup, my love, it's sacred, it's divine. You don't need to earn your worth. You don't need to hustle for love. You don't need to chase attention just to feel like you matter. You already matter. If someone doesn't see your light, bless them, release them, and shine anyway because the right people. They won't need to be convinced. They'll walk into your life already wearing sunglasses because your glow will be that strong. So let this be the first shift in your healing journey. Your value is not defined by someone else's inability to recognize it. Your value is yours, unshakable, eternal, God-given, and when you stop chasing the people who make you forget that, you create space for the ones who remind you of it every single day. If you have to run after love, it was never love. Real love walks with you, not away from you. Let's take a deep breath right now. Breathe in, hold it. Now breathe out, because what I'm about to say might feel like a spiritual awakening or a slap of truth. Maybe both. If you are constantly chasing someone's love, approval, attention, or time, you are abandoning the most important person in your life. Listen to me. There is something sacred about your presence, something divine about your being. And every time you chase someone who is drifting away from you, you are sending a silent message to yourself. Their approval is more important than my peace. Their presence is more valuable than my self-respect. And baby, let me tell you, that's not love, that's fear. That's emotional starvation, and you were not born to beg. Let me say it louder for your soul. You were not born to beg for breadcrumbs of love. You were not created to shrink, to bend, to twist yourself into someone else's idea of enough. You are enough right now, without the reply, without the validation, without them suddenly realizing your worth. I remember a time in my life when I was running, not physically, but emotionally, running after people who wouldn't even turn around to see me. I was giving, texting, calling, explaining, showing up again and again, just hoping they'd finally say, "There you are, I see you, I choose you." But they didn't, and do you know what happened? I lost sight of the woman I used to be. I became a version of myself that was exhausted, anxious, emotionally bankrupt. All because I thought that love meant effort. But here's what I know now. Love should never feel like you're constantly proving your worth. Real love flows. Real love feels safe. Real love shows up for you consistently, honestly, without you having to chase it down. The moment you find yourself chasing, stop and choose yourself instead. Choose to walk away from conversations where you're only tolerated, not celebrated. Choose to stop responding to people who only text you when they're lonely. Choose to sit in your own silence rather than fill it with someone else's noise. Because every time you chase someone, you leave a part of your soul behind, but every time you choose yourself, you come home. And let me tell you something I wish I'd learned sooner. Your love is a gift, not a sales pitch. You don't have to perform to be loved. You don't have to audition to be wanted. The people who are meant to walk with you, they'll meet you where you are. They'll hold your hand without you having to beg. And if someone starts walking away, don't chase them. Let them go. I know it hurts. God, I know it hurts. But you cannot build a home in someone's heart if they keep changing the locks. You were not meant to be someone's backup plan. They're their emotional crutch. You are a divine being created in love, filled with purpose, and the moment you stop chasing people, the moment you stand still in your truth, the whole universe begins to shift, because when you choose yourself, you teach others how to treat you. When you choose yourself, you raise your standards from survival to sacredness, and that shift, that quiet inner decision to stop running and start rising, that is the moment your healing begins. You'll start to feel something strange, peace in the places where anxiety used to live. You'll stop checking your phone every 2 minutes. You'll stop wondering, what did I do wrong? Because deep inside you'll finally know the answer. I didn't do anything wrong. I just stopped choosing them and started choosing me. And one day soon, you'll look back and whisper to the person you used to be, thank you for letting them go. Thank you for choosing us. So, if someone doesn't value you anymore, don't chase, stand still, stand in your truth, in your worth, in your healing, because love that requires you to lose yourself is not love. That's attachment. That's trauma. That's survival mode dressed up as connection. You don't need that. You need peace. You need joy. You need someone who sees you, really sees you, and still chooses you on the hard days. But before anyone else can choose you, you must choose yourself. And that, my love, is the most powerful decision you will ever make. Protect your peace, not your pain. You've been hurt. You've been dismissed, ignored, maybe even betrayed, and now your heart has a scar, maybe more than one. So what do? We start to build walls. Brick by brick, story by story. I'll never trust again. I'll never open up again. No one will ever get close enough to hurt me again. And it feels like protection. But what if I told you that wall isn't protecting you? It's trapping you. That wall you've built, made from past pain and heartbreak and silence and rejection, it doesn't just keep pain out. It keeps healing out. It keeps connection out. It keeps love out. You don't need to build a wall, love. You need to build a boundary, and there is a world of difference. Walls are built out of fear. Boundaries are built out of self-respect. Boundaries don't say, I don't trust anyone. Boundaries say, I trust myself to decide who gets access to me. Let me break it down for you. A wall says, I'll never love again. A boundary says, I'll only love where love is returned. A wall says, I'm fine. I don't need anyone. A boundary says, I'm whole on my own, but I'm open to people who bring peace, not chaos. You see the difference. One is rooted in fear. The other is rooted in healing. And let me be clear, creating boundaries is not selfish. It's sacred. You were not put on this earth to be drained, to be disrespected, to be dismissed. You were created to be loved, to be seen, to be honored. But the world cannot give you what you refuse to give yourself. So what do healthy boundaries sound like? Sometimes they sound like, no, I don't have space for this right now. That doesn't work for me. I need time. I deserve to be spoken to with kindness. And guess what? You don't have to apologize for any of that. Boundaries are not about keeping people out. They're about deciding who gets to come in, and on what terms. And the more you honor your own emotional and spiritual boundaries, the more you attract people who do the same. I once spoke to a young woman in one of my interviews, and she said, Opera, every time I create a boundary, I feel guilty. And I looked at her and said, that guilt? That's just the old version of you mourning her need to be liked by everyone. Let her go. Because when someone doesn't value you, one of the most powerful things you can do is not scream, not chase, not beg, but to calmly, gracefully, and confidently say, this is not the space for me. I'm removing myself with love, not with hatred, not with revenge, but with love. Love for yourself. That's a boundary, and sometimes creating a boundary looks like not answering that message, not picking up that call, not showing up where you're only tolerated. Other times, a boundary might sound like a conversation that says, "When you talk to me that way, I feel disrespected. I can't continue if this is how it's going to be." It's not confrontation. It's clarity. You are drawing a line that says, "I honor myself, and I won't sacrifice my peace for your comfort." Let me say this, you don't need to cut people out of your life every time there's conflict. But you do need to protect your energy, especially when the same people keep proving, again and again, that they don't value it. And the deeper truth, when you start creating boundaries, some people will fall away. That's okay, that's natural, that's alignment. Some people are only connected to your unhealed version. And when you begin to heal, they can no longer find a home in your soul. That's not rejection, that's evolution. And don't be afraid of it. You are not here to please everyone. You are not here to stay small just to keep the peace. You are here to grow, to glow, and to protect the space around your spirit like it is holy ground. Because it is. Let me end this part with this. A boundary is not a barrier to love. It is the doorframe through which only love can enter. And when someone stops valuing you, it is not your job to tear yourself open, trying to win them back. It's your job to close the door gently behind them. Lay your hand on your heart and say, "That was not for me, but I still am. I am still for me." That's the power of boundaries. Not to harden your heart, but to soften your life. Not to shut people out, but to invite the right ones in. You are the one you've been waiting for. Let's get real. For most of our lives, we are taught to measure our worth based on what others think of us. We chase approval like it's oxygen, from parents, from teachers, from friends, from strangers on the internet. We bend, we shrink. We break ourselves into smaller pieces so we can fit into other people's expectations, all for that little nod, that compliment, that validation that says, "You are enough." But here's the truth that took me decades to learn. If you need someone else's permission to feel worthy, you'll always be at the mercy of their opinion. And baby, their opinion changes with the wind. One day you're amazing. The next day, you're too much. One moment, you're praised. The next, you're questioned. If your worth is attached to their applause, then their silence becomes your downfall. Let that sink in. If their approval is your lifeline, then their disapproval is your destruction. But there's another way. A higher way, a more powerful, soul, deep way. You learn to validate yourself. You stand in the mirror. Not looking for perfection, but for presence. You say, "I see me. I choose me. I am proud of me." Even when no one claps. Even when no one notices. Even when no one understands the silent battles you fought just to stand here today. Let me ask you this. Do you know how powerful you are when you finally stop needing them to see you, and you decide to see yourself? When you stop waiting for them to pick you, and you pick yourself, that's not arrogance, that's alignment, because inner validation is about coming home, back to your soul, back to your truth, back to that little voice that whispers, "You were worthy from the beginning. You were worthy when they ignored you. You were worthy when they forgot you. You were worthy when they loved you, and still worthy when they left. Their presence never increased your value, and their absence never decreased it." Let's break this down. External approval says, if they like me, then I'm okay. If they validate my choices, then I must be right. If they clap for me, then I've done well. But guess what? People can only see you through the lens of their own story. Their own wounds, their own projections, their own insecurities. So why are you letting their broken lens define your reflection? Why are you handing over the keys to your self-esteem to someone who doesn't even know how to love themselves? Why are you sitting in a courtroom of opinions when you were never on trial? Baby, you don't need the world to approve of you. You just need to believe in your own voice again. So, how do you start validating yourself? You begin small. You acknowledge your efforts. Without waiting for a trophy, you celebrate progress, not perfection. You learn to say, I did my best today, and let that be enough. You recognize when your energy was beautiful, even if it wasn't appreciated. You begin talking to yourself the way you wish someone had, and let me tell you, it's a process. Self-validation is a muscle. You don't develop it in a day. You build it every time you honor your truth over someone else's opinion. I remember one time early in my career, I did an interview that I thought went terribly. I walked away thinking, that was a mess. The media had their say, critics had theirs. Even my closest friends shared their thoughts. But I had a moment alone, and in that silence I asked myself, did I show up with honesty? Did I lead with heart? Was I aligned with my values? The answer was yes, so I let that be my validation. And that moment taught me peace doesn't come from their applause. It comes from your alignment. Let's flip this script once and for all. You are not here to be everyone's favorite. You are here to be authentic. You are not here to please. You are here to live with purpose. You are not here to impress. You are here to express your soul. When someone doesn't value you anymore, that's not your cue to question your worth. That's your cue to reconnect with it, to stand taller, to look inward, and to whisper to yourself, I am still here, and I am still enough. When you stop chasing approval, you start walking in freedom. When you stop begging to be seen, you start living in your own light. And let me tell you something deeply spiritual and absolutely true. The moment you stop needing them to validate you is the moment they start noticing the glow they never saw before. Why? Because real power, real confidence, real energy, it doesn't scream, it doesn't beg, it radiates, and that radiance comes from within. So if today someone doesn't value you if they don't see you, don't chase, don't beg, don't crumble, just pause, breathe, place your hand on your heart and say, I am not waiting for them to see me. I already see myself, and that is more than enough. That's inner validation. That's your next level. That's your liberation. Sometimes their no is the universe saying, you were made for something greater. Let's sit with this for a moment. You loved them. You gave your heart. You showed up, honestly, fully, vulnerably, and still, they left, they stopped calling, they ignored your texts. They withdrew their affection, their time, their presence, and it felt like a rejection. It felt like a knife. It felt like something inside of you must be broken. You ask yourself, what did I do wrong? What could I have done differently? Why wasn't I enough? But here's what I want to tell you, my friend, from the deepest part of my soul. Rejection is not the end of your story. It's the redirection to your real one. Let me say that again for the part of your heart that's still hurting. Rejection is not a wall. It's a door to a better love, a deeper calling, a higher path. The pain of rejection is real. But so is the purpose. Listen, I've been there too. I've faced tables I wasn't invited to, rooms I wasn't welcomed into, people who once praised me and later disappeared without explanation. And every time it happened, I had to sit with that ache, that feeling of being discarded, abandoned, unseen. But every single time, without fail, that rejection led to something greater. I remember once not getting a job I thought I was born to do. I had worked for it, prepared for it, prayed for it, and when the phone rang and the answer was no, I was shattered. But 3 months later, I got the opportunity that would define my career. That rejection, that no. It was simply the universe making room for a bigger yes. Rejection isn't personal. It's directional, you see. Sometimes what feels like a closed door is actually a divine detour. Sometimes the person who left was only there to teach you how to love yourself more fiercely. Sometimes the opportunity that slipped away was only there to show you your resilience. Sometimes their silence is the loudest sign from the universe. This is not your home anymore. And if we're honest, many of us have stayed in places far too long where we weren't valued. We begged for crumbs, we accepted half love, we stayed in expired connections, trying to revive something that was never meant to last forever. Why? Because rejection scares us, because endings make us feel unlovable, because we confuse someone leaving with us not being worthy. But let me speak this truth into your soul. Their rejection doesn't define your worth. It reveals their inability to receive your light. Not everyone has the capacity to handle your love, your energy, your truth, and that's okay. Because when they reject you, what they're really doing is making space for someone who can. Redirection looks like this. You get passed up for a promotion, but it pushes you to start your own business. They walk away, and you finally walk back to yourself. You lose what you thought was the dream and realize the dream was too small for your soul. You cry, you heal, you rise, and you say, I didn't lose. I was being led. You didn't lose love. You were being led to true love. Starting with self-love, you didn't lose validation. You were being led to inner peace. You didn't lose opportunity. You were being led to destiny. Here's what you do when you're rejected. Feel it. Don't skip the grief. Don't silence the pain. It's okay to cry. It's okay to ask why. Healing requires honesty. Write it out, journal what you're feeling, write a letter to the person who hurt you. Even if you never send it, get it all out, reframe it, ask yourself, what might this be redirecting me toward? Reconnect with your power. Make a list of everything you bring to the table, not just what they didn't see, but what you finally see now. Take action. Channel your energy. Start the course. Launch the business. Join the class. Sign the lease. Say yes to the dream you postponed because you were waiting on their love. Let me tell you, some of the greatest souls I know became powerful, not in spite of rejection, but because of it. They were told you're not enough, and used it to become more than anyone expected. They were left behind and learned how to lead themselves forward. They were told you can't and decided, watch me. Rejection awakens the lion in you when they no longer value you, when they ghost you, when they minimize your worth. That is not your cue to shrink. It is your cue to roar, because you were not meant to be caged by their limitations. You were meant to be liberated by your own awakening. And nothing awakens us faster than being told we're not worthy, because that's when the soul rises and says, oh really, watch me. And when you start walking in your truth unapologetically, powerfully, peacefully, that's when the shift happens. You stop chasing, you stop explaining, you stop proving, and you just become. You become the version of yourself you were always meant to be, not shaped by their acceptance, but sculpted by your own healing. So when they don't value you anymore, try this. Say thank you. Yes, thank you, because sometimes the biggest blessings come wrapped in pain. Thank them for leaving so you could finally arrive. Thank them for saying no, so you could hear the bigger yes inside of you. Thank them for rejecting you so you could stop rejecting yourself. That's the real transformation. That's the alchemy of the soul. That's what happens when you turn your pain into power. So remember, when someone doesn't value you anymore, don't fall apart. Rise up, not to prove anything to them, but to fulfill everything within you. Their rejection is not the end of your story, it's the beginning of your next, most powerful chapter. And baby, when you finally walk into that chapter, you won't even miss the ones who couldn't read your last one. You are the home you've been looking for now. Take a deep breath. Close your eyes. Feel the silence in the space around you and the stillness within, because everything you've been searching for, the love, the worth, the validation, the peace, it was never lost. It's always been inside you. You see, we spend so much of our lives trying to belong to someone else, trying to earn a place in someone else's heart, trying to prove that we are enough for them to choose us, to see us, to stay. But what if I told you? You were never meant to be a visitor in someone else's home. You were meant to be the home. The moment you stop begging to be seen, you start seeing yourself. The moment you stop chasing love, you start becoming love. And the moment you stop clinging to those who don't value you, you begin walking toward everything that does. Because here's what I've learned. The people who are meant for you will never make you feel like you have to beg to be valued. They will never treat your presence like an option. They will never leave you questioning your worth. And if someone does, that's your invitation, not your destruction. That's your cue to rise, not your reason to shrink. Let them go, bless them, release them, and then return to yourself. Return to the little girl or boy inside who just wanted to be loved without conditions. Hold them, love them, tell them they are already whole. Because from that moment on, you no longer wait to be chosen. You realize you were the one choosing all along. So walk tall, walk free, walk into your next chapter, not carrying the weight of rejection, but the wings of revelation. Because when someone doesn't value you anymore, you don't break. You bloom, and remember this. You are not too much. You are not too sensitive. You are not too emotional. You are not unworthy. You are just too rare for the wrong ones to understand. So stop shrinking to fit into spaces that were never made for your soul, and start expanding into the life that's been waiting on the other side of your self-worth. Because when you finally value you, the world has no choice but to follow. Now go and become everything they never saw in you, but you always felt in your bones. This is your time. This is your season. This is your becoming. And until you know your value, you will always live beneath your worth. But the day you finally do, everything changes.